When I used to think of the treatment of insanity during the 19th century, I knew women were treated more poorly than men because of the history of the marginalization of women, but I didn't know how treatment differed. After taking this class, I am now more aware of how the asylum keepers controlled women's reproductive systems and how gender roles played a part in therapy during the 19th century. In the 19th century, the biggest risk thought to cause white Victorian female insanity was the women's reproductive system and their sexuality. Processes that we think of today as normal and natural, like menopause and menstruation, were seen as cycles to be controlled and halted at all costs. Menstruation was prevented by cold baths and avoiding reading, while menopause was controlled by injections of ice water and leeching of women's reproductive parts. Nymphomania was an illness that women with sexual desires and behaviors that stray from the norm were diagnosed with. The most extreme method to control women through their bodies were clitoridectomies, which were introduced by Dr. Isaac Baker Brown and seen as the best cure for nymphomania. The removal of the clitoris symbolized the restriction of female sexuality to just childbearing. Not only did treatments manage women's minds through the control of their bodies, the moral management system did through enforcing gender roles. During the 19th century, women who did not meet the definition of ladylike by following the social norms like silence, decorum, and gratitude were seen as insane and wild, and the asylum made it a part of moral management to integrate these values into the woman's everyday routine. Victorian women who were talkative and insisted on self-expression were severely punished by confinement in basements, sedation, and cold baths. The woman's restlessness could be contributed to the fact that they were rarely able to go outside and engage in any physical activity. The activities that women were able to do were limited to the gender roles seen throughout society during this time. These jobs included sewing and cooking, but laundry was seen as the most efficient therapy. The physical act of laundry, like wringing out clothes and ironing them, were seen to help women release their anger. The last way that moral management controlled women's minds through gendered roles were by their appearance. As Elizabeth T. Stone states from her first-hand experience, "After I retired, she came into my room and took out my clothes. I asked her what for. She said it was the rule of the house." Psychiatrists thought that a woman should care about their appearance, and if they didn't, their mental state was judged. If a woman dressed too poorly or too nice, that was a sign of madness. The progress of patients' appearance were measured by photographs taken by Dr. Hugh Welch Diamond. Dr. Diamond was influenced by literary models of femininity, and those were the expectations that the patients were to meet in order to be considered cured. But he also enjoyed photographing women who portrayed the figure Ophelia. Ophelia was a character in Hamlet who was portrayed as a sensuous siren, and in asylums, Ophelia eventually represented Victorian female insanity. These photographs are now seen as a form of objectification and exploitation of insane women. Although direct intervention of women's minds through their bodies, like clitoridectomies, is not prevalent in our society today, the governing of women's reproductive system and gender roles still play a prominent role.